today's video, I'm going to be showing you a 4D acrylic nail art design that is a goose that is sitting on top of a golden egg from a classic nursery rhyme. That is just, it's so cute and so simple, and my favorite part of this is actually the way that the nest is created, because it looks like it would be super complicated and just kind of a giant pain in the butt, but it's so easy. So I hope you guys love it as much as I do, and don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future videos as well.
So we're going to begin with a grass green at the tip of the nail, and we're going to make a pretty simple ombre. I'm actually not even trying to blend it out flawlessly. I just want kind of a faded transition from sky blue to green. So then the next color is going to be that sky blue, and we're just going to gently brush it over the green to have a soft line, because we don't want anything that's super harsh. Add a little bit more green if you want to, and then we're going to encase the nail with a layer of clear acrylic. And that line, if your ombre isn't flawless, which mine isn't because I wasn't really trying to be that perfect, is going to be covered up anyway, because when we add our nest and our egg and stuff, you'll never even see it. So we just didn't want a harsh line. We want it to look a little bit faded. And now we're going to be filing the nail into shape with an e-file, making sure that there's no lumps, bumps, imperfections, and just kind of going over the whole thing and making sure that it is smooth and nice and even. That's kind of what we're going for. And now after that, I'm going to be applying a layer of no wipe gel top coat over the entire nail and curing it. And the reason for that layer is so that when I'm using this gold color I'm using right now, it doesn't stain the background, because that golden color will definitely kind of get like a shimmery hue over anything it touches unless it is protected by gel top coat. Inside that gold egg, we're going to place a magnet. I don't know if you saw me just struggling to get that magnet in there. Don't use something like metal tweezers, because that's magnetic too and it doesn't work, which I always forget, and then I try to do it anyway. But after you have that, now we're going to make our nest. So to make the nest, I'm going to be taking a piece, or a lot of little tiny short pieces of brown thread and cut them into a bowl. So just when you're cutting these, try to keep them about the same length, and you want them to be around 5 millimeters or a quarter inch, that type of a length. And just cut a whole lot of these, really a lot. I mean, you want to have plenty in your bowl that you don't have to recut them. And once you have enough of them, or what you think is enough of them, which some of them flew out of my little dish, they didn't all stay where they were supposed to. Got a whole bunch of them in there, and they're kind of staticky too, which doesn't help anything. Then you're going to take a scoop of a tan color acrylic. So this can either be like a cover pink, or just like a beige color or a light brown, and mix that in so that the little pieces of thread have acrylic around them on all sides. And then grab a bead of acrylic with that thread in it and place it onto the nail. As you can see, it's a little funky to work with because that thread doesn't really cooperate, but it creates the best little nest material I have seen for doing something like this. Then after that has set up, then you're going to wrap the nail very tightly with some plastic wrap. Really pinch it underneath the nail. I actually like to use a pinching tool to keep the plastic wrap taut. But then we're going to take and place a magnet on top of the one that's already in the nail, in that egg. And then we're going to be sculpting our little goose over the top of the egg, so it sits right in the nest. And this is really kind of awkward because you can't get any acrylic, any of this wet white acrylic on your nest, or it'll hold everything together. So just be very careful as you're working with it to make sure that your acrylic only stays on top of that plastic wrap. You don't want it to touch either the nail in the background or your nest or basically anything else. So we've got just the start of our body for our goose, and then we're going to be adding her head and her neck going around. And typically in the mother goose tails, it's not a Canadian, it's not a Canada goose, it's just like a white goose. But I love Canadian geese. I have always had a very soft spot for them. I remember when I was living in New York for a little while, there was a park not far from me, and there were geese in it. And I went to the park probably 3-4 times a week just to hang out with the geese, because it was such a calm, relaxing place and there was nobody around. And I'm kind of one of those people that likes to be where there's nobody around. So yeah, ever since then, I've had a really soft spot for Canadian geese. So that's what we're doing here. So to start out with, obviously, they aren't just white, but we're going to start out with just white and do all the details later with some acrylic paint, which I know might seem kind of weird instead of sculpting in the color, but there's so many different little bits of color on them in different places where they're black versus white that it would have been a lot of work to sculpt that in. And this way also, if you do want it to just be a classic white goose, you can see how that would look without the color on it too, if you did want it to be more like the classic nursery rhyme. So we have our little beak that we're sculpting in on our goose, and you can do either, very minimal detail with the acrylic, or you can sculpt in a lot of detail if you want. I'm going to do somewhere in between, so I've got pretty, simple shapes here, but I'm going to do a little bit of sculpting for a wing on our mother goose, and then I'm going to do just a little bit of tail feathers on her too. So depending on how crazy you want to get, you can keep it super simple or go super detailed with it. And if you are going to have a white goose, instead of sculpting her beak with white as I did, I would go with an orange or like a yellow-orange color instead. But now we're going to do all of our paint. So I'm going to start out with some white and some brown. And instead of getting tan, I have all these colors of paint out next to me, and I'm going to mix them as I go, and I'm going to mix them on the piece. This will give you some very nice variegations within the color, and it'll just make it a little bit easier to kind of get some swirls and different color textures within it. So use some quick brushing back and forth strokes and add brown, white, and black paint. Lighten it up as it goes towards her neck and goes up her neck. And then add your black bits here and there. Some of the parts on a Canadian goose are just straight up black. There's no, gray or brown in them. So that's going to be mostly her upper part of her neck. But then there's also some spots where there is some white still, almost kind of like an orca. I think they look kind of like orcas if an orca was a goose or a goose was an orca. And then add some gray highlights on her, a very dark gray, a charcoal gray, just to, bring some color into it so it's not just black. And then going back to white, I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of little feather lines on her wings and on her body. And just sort of bring in some of that texture. They have a very, like I said, variegated color pattern to them. So you don't want it to just be a solid color anywhere. And then go through and do some outlines on her wings and her tail feathers with black again, or that dark charcoal gray, either one really. Do some highlights on her beak just to bring it a little bit brighter. And then don't forget her eye, of course. And then after you have little details of her eye in, then you're going to finish her with a layer of matte top coat. And now on the nail, I'm going to be applying some jewelry gel near the cuticle area, and then applying a layer of gel sealer over the nail again, just to make sure it is nice and shiny and glossy and smooth. And then I'm going to press some gold feather charms into that area, and just some gold studs too. I thought those gold feathers were the perfect addition to this design with the golden egg and a goose. I just thought it was a perfect little way to finish this off. So I'm going to add those, and like I said, those little gold, they're like half, domed little half pearl things. And place those down. And then after that, I'm going to cure it. And then you can play with your little mother goose and take her on and off the nest. And it looks like she just is sitting there. You'd never think that there's an egg underneath, but you can pop her off and then the egg is there. I love how this turned out. I hope you guys like it as much as I do. And don't forget to click subscribe, see all my future videos as well.